All right, guys, today we're going to talk about something new in algebra. We're going to talk about evaluating expressions. So go ahead and get out your notes and write down today's I can sentence. I can evaluate expressions. I can evaluate expressions. All right, so we're going to start talking about letters, throwing some letters into math. And to do that, we need to talk about a vocabulary word. And that very important vocabulary word is variable. All right, in math class, a variable is a letter that stands for a number. It's a letter that stands for a number. That's all it is. So if you think back to like your fun little elementary days where you used to do problems like this. 3 plus this heart equals 5. And your little teacher would ask you, okay, kids, what number goes where that heart is? And you guys would go, 3 plus what number equals 5? And you'd all go, oh, it's 2. And where the heart is, it's supposed to be the number 2, because 3 plus 2 equals 5. And then you got to middle school or later elementary school, and you started seeing things like this. Okay, 3 plus this blank box equals 5. And your teacher would say, okay, what number goes in that box? And you guys would say, oh, 2 goes in the box. 3 plus 2 is 5. But now that we're learning algebra, instead of a heart or a blank box, we are going to start using a letter. So we will say 3 plus x equals 5. And now it'll be not what goes where the heart is, not what goes where the box is, but tell me, guys, what does x equal? What number would have to go where the x is to make this true? And you would say 2. So x equals 2 to make that math problem true. And this is going to be your whole answer. X equals 2. So a variable is just, instead of a blank box, instead of a random shape, it's just a letter. That means that's a blank right there in the problem. For instance, another one, if you looked at, let's see, 5 times y equals 10. 10's bad because we just used 2. How about 20? 5 times y equals 20. And so you go, okay, 5 times what number equals 20? And you're like, oh, 5 times 4. So that means that y has to be the number 4. All right, so the variable is just a letter that is a blank. All right, so let's talk about what this looks like in our skill today. Evaluating expressions. Evaluating expressions. So the direction for a problem like this is going to say evaluate for, and then it's going to say the letter x equals 10. And then it's going to give you a problem that looks like maybe this. 20 minus x divided by 5. 20 minus x divided by 5. And your job would go, okay, if x is the number 10, you are going to plug in the number 10 where you see an x. So where this x is, it's really going to turn into the number 10. And then you drop down all the stuff, divide by 5, the minus, the 20. And now we're going to follow through this using PEMDAS, the order of operations. Okay? So are there any parentheses in this expression? No. So no parentheses. Are there any exponents? No. Is there any multiplying or dividing? Well, yeah. 10 divided by 5, which is 2. So drop down what we haven't used, the minus and the 20. And now all we have left is the 20 minus 2, which is 18. And that's our answer. So all we did here was they told us a number to plug in where the letter is. We did that here, and then we did drop down work. Let's look at another one. example number 2. Example number 2. Let's say the instruction says evaluate for, and let's do a couple letters this time. X equals 2, y equals 4. So what if you have the expression 2 times y minus x? 2 times y minus x. That means 2 times a blank minus a blank. And up here they tell us, okay, underneath that x, write the number 2. X turns into the number 2. And then they tell us underneath the y, write the number 4. So the y turns into a 4. And we drop down all the other stuff that we haven't changed. So the minus, the multiply, and the 2. This is called the plug-in step. This is important, the plug-in step. Right? You have to show that plug-in step. And now we just do order of operations, PEMDAS. So are we going to do the multiplying first or the subtracting? Well, PEMDAS tells us to do the multiplying. So 2 times 4 is 8. Drop down the minus and the 2, and 8 minus 2 is 6. So the answer ends up being 6 for this one. Now, if I'm grading this on your quiz, like you're going to have on Tuesday, all right, you get a point for showing the plug-in, and you get a point for showing the correct drop-down work, and you get a point for the correct answer. So these are worth 3 points. You have to show that plug-in phase, or you're not going to get that point. This is the whole skill here. Okay. Example number 3. Example number 3. What if we have evaluate for, now this time, x is going to equal 32, y is going to equal 4, and z is going to equal 2. And let's say we have the expression x divided by y minus z. X divided by y minus z. So let's go and plug these numbers in to where they go. So the x turns into a 32 divided by the y, which turns into a 4, minus the z, which turns into the number 2. So now we've done our plug-in stage. All right, we're done with the plug-in. And now we can go ahead and use PEMDAS and drop down work to get our answer. So PEMDAS says you have to do your dividing first. So 32 divided by 4 is 8. Drop down your minus, your 2, and 8 minus 2 is 6. And there's our answer. All right, so your process here is you plug in, do your drop down work, and then get your answer. All right. Now let's see if I can stump you here. Let's look at one that may be a little more difficult. Example number 4. What if I have, let's see, evaluate for m equals 3 and n equals 5. And let's say the expression that we have to use those in is 10 times n to the m power. This one's a little more complicated. All right, let's plug these in. Okay, so the 10 is going to stay the same. The multiply is going to stay the same. That n turns into the number 5, and the exponent m turns into the number 3. We know that only because they tell us that here. Okay, so now I have 10 times 5 to the 3rd power. So now I can do my drop-down work. So PEMDAS says I have to do my exponent before I can do the multiplying. So off to the side, I'm going to do my 5 to the 3rd power. which is 5 times 5 times 5. 5 times 5 is 25 times 5. 25 times 5 is 125. So 5 to the third power ends up being 125. Drop down the multiply and the 10. And 10 times 125 ends up being 1,250. Okay? So it's not so bad. You're just plugging in the numbers where they belong and doing your drop down work. Now this last one I want you to do on your own. This last one I'm going to do on your own. I'm pulling this off of a test, so you get to see what a test level problem looks like. So here's your instruction. Evaluate for A is going to be the number 20. You're going to have a B that's going to equal the number 10. And you're going to have C that's going to be the number 5. And here's the expression you have to work with. A plus B minus C. So hit pause on the video, do this on your own, and then hit play after you have your answer. All right, at this point, you should have your own answer. So let's follow along to see if you did exactly what I'm doing. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to plug in. All right, so the A, this tells us turns into the number 20, plus the B, which turns into the number 10, minus the C, which turns into the number 5. So if we're going to do drop-down work, right, Aunt Sally says, PEMDAS, there's no parentheses, there's no exponents, there's no multiplying or dividing, so we're to the adding and subtracting part. So we have 20 plus 10, which is 30. Drop down the minus and the 5. 30 minus 5 is 25. So that's our answer. If you did not get 25, try to identify which part you did different to see where we went wrong. All right, it's time to do your quick check quiz. So go ahead and get on Schoology, get in evaluating expressions, and do the quick check quiz.